Have you ever been just annoyed, bored, or frustrated when talking to someone? It happens all the time, and there's a lot of different ways that it can happen. One of the most important skills that you can have as a person is being able to talk to people. And unfortunately, it's a skill that we're pretty much never actually taught. We're just kind of expected to pick it up as we go along, which works for some people who have a talent in being conversationally agile. But especially in a world of texting and basically having all of your entertainment available to you at all times, there's a lot fewer opportunities to just practicing the skill of talking to people, maybe even strangers that you've met on the street. Now, I'm not knocking texting, right? I think it's great that we get to be in touch with the people that we love, or in the case of Twitter, the people that we hate, pretty much all of the time. It's amazing. All that being said, I do hate texting. It's like 10% of an actual conversation. It's just plain words being thrown back and forth between people without any of the surrounding things that also are part of a conversation. It's just plain rice. There's no spices, no sauce, nothing on the side, nothing. It's just rice. Genuinely, the only people I text with are people that I just legitimately enjoy talking to a lot. But this video isn't about texting, though we're gonna come back around to it later, and you can certainly use the principle that I'm gonna teach you today to improve your text conversations also. And chances are, if you've ever done improv theater or been anywhere near improv theater or most other kinds of theater, you have heard this before. But this very simple conversational principle can have a massive impact on pretty much all areas of your life. Yes, and. Literally, these two words just will improve all of your conversations, well, most of your conversations going forward. And a lot of people are gonna walk away from talking to you going, oh, that was a good conversation that I had with this person right there. That made me feel good. Or I learned something new, or I'm inspired, or whatever. And the best thing is, the person you're talking to doesn't actually have to be aware of this principle. It is sufficient if you do. It becomes better if they also use this principle for their conversations, but you can basically outsource that knowledge. Let's focus on the yes part for a minute, because it's the most important one. It is essential that you listen to people and give them your full attention while they are talking. I've also done a video on how to be a good listener, but that doesn't necessarily relate to this as much, so the advice I'm going to give you is specifically conversation focused. Don't be distracted, don't grab up to read the menu, don't look around the area just all the time, and don't hold eye contact, don't look at your phone. All of that shit is massively disrespectful and will make people feel like they're not being listened to. Which, by the way, you're not doing. You're not listening to them. Human beings are not built to dedicate attention to multiple things at once. We cannot multitask. It is not possible. Some people, like myself, have trained themselves to be able to switch their attention rapidly between two or more different things. However, we still experience all of these things in a suboptimal and not fully immersed way. So give them your full, undivided attention. I do this attention flicking thing at home when I do things. It's fine. It's a useful skill to have. Just don't do it in conversation. Listen to what people are saying, try actually understanding them, and put yourself in their mind. Remember small details that they mention which you find interesting, because those might be very good conversation points later. Also, remembering them, I mean, everybody likes it when you remember some minor detail that they mentioned, because it makes them feel like you were paying attention to them. Very often in conversation, I might get a great idea of something to say next, possibly even in response to something that the person just said before they're done talking. But at that point, I'm no longer listening to what the person is saying. I'm too focused on the thing that I want to say later, and I will say it regardless of what the person will actually end up saying to me, so it might not even fit the conversation properly. This is actually something where I think we can learn a lot from texting. When you're texting, and you're receiving a text, unless you are texting in like a conversational style, which not everybody does, that is a complete element of the conversation that that person sent you. Your response will occur having read the entirety of that text. This principle should apply to your face-to-face conversations as well. No matter what you're talking about, if you're having a serious debate, maybe you're just exchanging opinions about things, always assume that there is something you can learn from this other person if you just listen to them. Do yourself a favor and keep an open mind. Everyone is an expert on something, and everyone has at least one good thought that they will transfer to you, probably not even consciously, if you just allow it to happen. But if in a conversation all you care about is what you can preach, how you can come off, what you want to say, what your opinion is, you will never be able to listen to what the other person has to say. Now, I have a problem with this. I tend to dominate the conversations I am in, and a lot of people like that. A lot of people enter into conversations with me because they want to hear me monologue about some things. But I always try to at least open up space so other people can say something. So what do you do when someone has imparted upon you a piece of the conversation? Well, this is where the "and" part comes into play. Yes, and doesn't mean you should agree with everything that the other person says, especially if you're in like an argument or a debate. But if you are, you should definitely understand their point in the best possible interpretation. Maybe ask them to clarify something that you didn't fully understand. Acknowledge that you understand their point and then put your counterpoint. Or if you're a normal person who doesn't just have debates with people that they meet because they enjoy debating people so much, just add to the thing that they said. Now in this case, yes and can have a question mark at the end, depending on how you want to phrase it. You can relate to what the other person said by adding something from your own pool of experiences that resonates on the same emotion. Be careful with this though. Don't just try to one-up other people or draw the attention that they get from the empathy that they receive onto yourself by comparing your experience to theirs. Instead, use it to empathize with them also. Now, especially when people are opening up about something like personal, emotional, maybe a relative dying, we often make the mistake of going, "Oh, that happened to me as well. It was terrible." Well, there's nothing really wrong with relating to a person this way. It's just the yes part, not the and part. You want to ask the person how they feel, not just presume that it is for them also terrible. And this is done with the very simple question, how do you feel about that? It's literally, you don't need to be fancy or anything, just how do you feel about that? Oftentimes, and this is crazy that this is the case, but it's true, people won't have asked themselves that question. I mean, it is the whole reason why we talk to other people about our feelings and the things happening in our lives, so we can get their perspectives on them and also just vent a little bit, become a little lighter on the shoulders. It's part of the whole being open to new experiences thing. At that point, the person is getting something out of you asking the question as to how they feel. And this doesn't just need to apply to deep emotional things. We also feel about the mundane stuff that happens in our lives. Unless you're nerding out about something or you find a very particular interest in a detail, most details kind of irrelevant. They will just conversationally lead you away from the emotional components and the empathic connection of the thing that you're talking about. Now, when it comes to asking questions, a big problem that many people have is that they will ask closed questions. Do you like fruit X? Did you study this? Things like that. If you're asking someone a closed question, most of the time it's going to be a yes or no question. You're only giving them the ability to do the yes part. You're making it very difficult for them to do their own and part to roll the conversation forward. Right? Their response to the question, whether it is a yes or a no, is the yes of the yes and that we use as a conversational principle. But coming up with an and in that moment will require more work on their part. Instead, try asking open questions like, what kind of fruit do you like? Or what did you study at university? And then inquire further into those things. Allow people the space to talk. This is something that I struggle with, and a lot of people do. Now, if you want to guide the conversation to a specific topic, you can still do that with an open question. So instead of asking, did you like this and that movie that you saw recently, you ask, what did you think about this and that movie that you saw recently? It gives people the room to respond in a way that is more what they want to say, as opposed to just the specific binary information that you are asking for if you ask a closed question. Asking closed questions is of course fine when you're trying to make a larger point or steer the conversation in a direction where you want to know that you're on the same page. Like if you want to talk about a specific video game with someone, it's probably a good idea to ask them if they've actually played it. Also, this is very important. If you don't know someone super well, or even if you do know someone quite well, sometimes asking general questions that are just the small talky kind of questions is fine. It shows that you have interest in people, and people like it when others are interested in them without demanding their attention in return. They will give you that attention, and they will want to give you that attention, you just have to trust them. Also very important, do not be afraid of silence. Silence is a great way to punctuate something, and it's not at all a conversational lull. Even though sometimes it is, but most of the time it actually isn't. You don't need to immediately break every silence. Let it be there for a moment. Then ask a question, or crack a joke. You don't need to draw attention to it. It's going to be over in a second. Everyone in the conversation is just taking a very short breather, and then it's back on. Most of the time, it's not even awkward silence. It's just silence. If you can be silent with a person that you could also be having a conversation with, that means that you are comfortable around that person. It's a great feeling. There is no need for you to carry a conversation either. Sometimes a conversation just doesn't work out. It's not your responsibility to make it be good. If, in spite of your best efforts to make it a good conversation, the other person isn't engaging and not making an effort, you can just walk away. Be nice about it, right? Don't like, oh, this was a bad conversation and you're a shit person, right? Be nice, but walk away. At the same time, don't force conversation on people. Sometimes the other person just isn't interested in talking to you right now, and it probably doesn't even have anything to do with you specifically. They're probably not interested in talking to anyone, or they're just interested in talking to a specific set of people, or a specific person. Don't take it personally. Sure, being a great conversationalist might open those people up to that conversation, even though they might not be like fully interested in a conversation right now, but that is a core disposition that they still need to have inside of them. It's not something that you can just make happen. There is, of course, a lot more to be said about how to be a good conversationalist, but unfortunately we don't have the time. Like any skill, it requires practice. So if you feel like you've made a mistake in a conversation, don't beat yourself up over it. Nobody's judging you. People say I'm a good conversationalist. I feel like I'm really not, and I make dumb mistakes all the time. Nobody has ever cared about any of that. Just remember, when in doubt, yes and. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar, buying some of my beautiful merchandise, or maybe my short story collection. In that spirit, go out there, have a nice conversation, and see you around, cunts.